the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
And we are back yet again. I have my shitty headset, so apologies for the audio, but we're back on a sunny Wednesday day. Hi, Taylor. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Would you like to introduce us?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Happy almost 4th of July. Welcome to Doomed to Fail. We are the podcast that brings you history's most notorious disasters and epic failures twice a week, every week. On Monday, we covered the 1972 Munich massacre at the Olympics, which was terrible. And today, Faraz is going to tell us something not as terrible.
It's not that terrible.
Great.
Well, it's interesting. It depends on what scale you grade terribleness, because if you grade it on a scale of one thing begets other things that ultimately leads us to where we are right now, and there's alternate planes of reality that we could have gone down,
Lord help
then
us.
maybe it is terrible. But
Someone
it-
to just mention last week, someone while we were talking on our last episode, someone who is a friend who is someone who is a who is like a third party voter sent something mean to me on Instagram, and then I immediately got like a notice that they took it back. It said like the person has deleted their last message, and I'm sure that they think that I didn't see it, but I definitely saw it, and I'm like, you do you, man. But
you do you.
there's a lot going on.
So I mean, I'm not like really that passionate about many things, but like parts of the topic I'm discussing here, which are political in nature, I'm like super passionate about. And it has nothing to do with like party affiliation so much as it has to do with like establishment apparatus and how things
Hmm.
operate and what things I feel are right and what things I feel are wrong. And in those things, if anybody feels a certain way, you're probably wrong. Like, I'm sorry, but like I'm 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 very sure about very few things I say.
Oh my
But
God. Also, before you get started, I have another sad thing to tell you.
okay,
Our fish died.
I saw that.
His name was Chippy. He was a beta fish. I think we had him for like 2 years. And I really think that he listened at story time. Like he would get really excited and like come up to the side of the tank. And then like one day I didn't feed him. We didn't feed him. We forgot. And the next day he yelled at me. He like camped me in the tank and went, whop. Like he opened up his mouth and like gave me a big bubble. And like I know he was talking to me and he was mad at me. And then when I got home from vacation after Japan, I like took him out of the tank to clean it and he got back in and he was so mad at me for leaving the tank. He was like doing these like jumps and flips and I just like felt like he had a really good personality, but he was getting sick the last couple weeks and we found him passed away the other day. And so we buried him in the backyard and I painted a big stone and I wrote Chippy, he loved story time and we buried him this morning and it was very sad. And I like took his tank and I think this might have been a mistake, but I like cleaned it and I put the plant back in it so it's like in the same spot, but I keep thinking that he's there and I'm just like sad. So rest in peace, Chippy. You were a good beta fish.
Rip Chippy. That's the one thing
Hmm.
about pets. They're great, and they also just rip your heart out so bad.
I know. I'm just like I keep wanting to go say hi to him and I'm like, oh my God, he was a fish, but I'm like I still loved him.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sure the kids are
Thank you.
sad.
Yeah,
So,
we're all sad. Now we have a
um,
pet cemetery, which is cool. So,
just don't bury yourself there,
or
or
do.
or do if you want to be a Stephen King character.
So it depends.
It depends on what you're shooting for.
Mhm.
Um, okay, so I kind of preface this. So I was looking. We're recording this on Sunday, June 30th. And so the presidential debate between Biden and Trump were on Thursday. And obviously, a lot of people are talking about this kind of stuff. And it started making me think a little bit about party apparatus stuff. And one thing that I asked ChatGPT, and again, people can feel however they want about this, it is an absolute undeniable fact that Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Dianne Feinstein should have quit when they had the chance. like,
Yes.
things would have been the world would have been a lot different if they had identified their flaws and quit when they were ahead of time. So I started thinking about other what if scenarios and what those downstream impacts could have been. And I landed on one that is kind of the beginning of the national political scandal in the US crisis, and that is the life and time of Gary Hart. Do you know what that is?
I don't know. I think so, but I don't know. Maybe tell me more.
Okay.
I'm sure I do. I literally just mentioned that I have a master's degree in political communication, so am I going to get shamed for this? Probably.
I think that was in
Continue.
the last episode, so you probably know if they don't connect the dots, it's fine.
Don't connect the
Um,
dots. Cut that out.
don't connect the dots. So Gary Hart looks like the guy who was he looks like the type of guy who was basically born to like either be president or play the president in a movie. He's
Hmm.
very Mitt Romney like in that regard. He was a lawyer. Well, is he's still alive? He is a lawyer in Colorado, and in the 1970s, he started getting involved in local politics. So in 1974, well, local politics is then he was working for the McGovern campaign. Like he was working on campaigns, and then he started being involved directly himself. And in 1974, he ran for U.S. Senate as a Democrat against a two-term incumbent senator and just destroyed him in the general election, which is
Hmm.
a challenge because usually incumbents have like that advantage of being an incumbent, and having a newcomer on the scene and doing that is pretty impressive. He actually was in luck because again he was running as a Democrat, and at that time, Nixon was that was a year Nixon resigned office, and so Republicans were just shitting the bed left and right, and so he was
Yeah.
able to kind of ride that wave. So typically when a rising star is found, and that's somebody who can basically mobilize donors, fundraisers, supporters on a national level, they tend to become kind of the media darling or the party darling, in this case, the DNC's darling. And the way things were going with Gary, his looks, his demeanor, his attitude, the way he actually just crushed it in Colorado in his first race and winning a U.S. Senate seat, which is crazy. Like that's actually really impressive. That's like why
Hmm.
Obama was so impressive, is because he like just leapfrogged every step along the way. Like he was
Hmm.
there's levels to this, and he definitely went really far ahead of everybody else. As a result of this, he basically was just rising in the ranks of the Democratic Party. He wasn't at the top. He was just like he was kind of like where like Gavin Newsom is right now. You know,
Hmm.
like just somebody who's
Hmm.
there and everybody knows he's reliable, but like we don't know what we're gonna do with this guy, sort of thing.
Gavin Newsom is busy this weekend.
Yeah, yeah. I saw you just passed. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I thought you meant because he just passed the budget deficit, the bill in California,
No,
but
no, no, no,
he's
no.
also on every news program out there.
Yes.
Um, so in 1980, he ran for re-election for U.S. Senate, and he also won, although it was more narrow this time. Um, Back then, he was also operating under the wing of basically what was going on with Jimmy Carter, and Jimmy Carter had a horrible, horrible approval rating, and so it
Hmm.
was tough. It was tough. It's tough to be a downstream Democrat or Republican and win your office when the president is losing his office. Like it just doesn't work too well.
Yeah.
So in 1983, there was no clear and obvious Democratic candidate to run against a very, very strong and dominant Ronald Reagan. So his poll numbers were through the roof, and so nobody really knew what they were supposed to do here. What we had on the ticket was these are just nobodies. So Claude Kirk Jr., Ernest Holdings, Alan Cranston, Ruben Askew, George McGovern. Okay, we heard of them or him, and John Glenn. Okay, we've heard of John Glenn too. So those were the basically inconsequential candidates. Then there was Carter's VP, Walter Mondale, and Jesse
Hmm.
Jackson. And then there was Gary Hart
Hmm.
himself. Those were really the three consequential candidates that were running for the Democratic nomination in 1983 for the 84 election. So in 1983, Gary decided to throw his hat in the ring for the primary campaign, and he went from kind of like an unknown on the national stage to beating everyone but Mondale in the first primary state of Iowa, and then beating Mondale in New Hampshire, which was a huge wake up call for Mondale, going from VP name recognition, all that to starting to lose. As the primary season heated up, it was clear that there was only two candidates worth really talking about. Mostly everybody except Jesse Jackson had dropped out at that point, but it was mostly just the Mondale and Gary Hart thing. Mondale, obviously, like I said, he had the good look of being a former president, which means he also had party establishment support and a ton of dollars that were backing him. But despite that advantage, they basically tied on Super Tuesday, which is kind of nuts if you think about it. So
Nuts.
a strong Super Tuesday showing is like one of the most important ways for a campaign to cement its legitimacy. For context, going into Super Tuesday in 1992, Bill Clinton was trailing then former Massachusetts Senator Paul Tsongas, and then he
Wow.
won. And then Bill Clinton became who he was. Same story. So in 2008, Obama was trailing Hillary in the polls until they hit Super Tuesday. And he just blew it through the roof, and obviously what happened there happened. Actually,
Hmm.
this is the part where I think people are gonna have a beef with me, and I don't give a shit because I'm right. So this is also the case between Bernie and Hillary in 2016. So Hillary started out as a front runner, and then Bernie had a super strong showing on Super Tuesday. It's a weird
Hmm.
example because obviously Hillary went on to win the party nomination over Bernie. But again, this goes back to like the insane amount of bullshit corruption within the DNC. I mean, I'm going to say at that time, but I'm not so surprised if it isn't the same as right now. Things that we were privy to directly, Taylor, was
Hmm.
them revoking his access to the van. Like it was just they planted. It was crazy how much corruption happened. It was. I didn't realize this until later. Was that after there was a hack that happened in the DNC after this, and it led to Debbie Wasserman Schultz resigning, the DNC CEO, the communications director, the CFO. Like they wiped out the entire DNC because they were so obviously trying to screw over Bernie Sanders because they thought Hillary should get the nomination. And honest opinion, if Bernie had gotten the nomination, there wouldn't be a Trump right now.
Yeah, they screwed over the whole fucking country.
They destroyed the world.
Yeah.
These four idiots destroyed the entire world basically. So, anyways, that's where we are. So,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, anyways, my point my point about how angry that makes me is that despite everything being said about like the morals of the parties, the Republicans actually were democratic. they let
Hmm.
they let the guy that should never have gotten nominated get nominated. It's insane. Like, meanwhile, the Democratic Party is like, no, we got to bury the guy who, whatever, it doesn't matter. It is what it is.
It is what it
Um,
is. You did say alternate timeline earlier, and I do wish I was on an alternate timeline, but
yeah,
it is
yeah.
what it
I
is.
started going down this rabbit hole of like the super delegates because I like was like, what was going on with the delegates again? I was like, oh yeah, it was just all party elders. It was a
Hmm.
572 party elders that just voted for Hillary because it was just like, oh, it's her turn. It's her turn to run. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. Anyways, so we're going back to Gary Hart. So the race comes down to Walter Mondale and Gary Hart with the two having those blowout victories on Super Tuesday. One of Mondale's most popular attack lines against Gary was that his policy positions sounded good, but they lacked substance. So
Hmm.
in what would end up being like a disastrous debate performance for Gary Hart, um, he was presenting himself as I'm the younger candidate, I'm the newer candidate, I have new ideas. Mondale's old and stodgy and all that. Mondale would turn to Gary and he would reference a Wendy's fast food slogan, "Where's the beef?" So heading into the convention, both Gary Hart and Mondale were still campaigning for president, but neither had enough delegates to kind of cinch the nomination. That's when
Hmm.
what I mentioned before, the super delegates came into effect. Basically, that's when the candidates go and lobby to these party elders
Hmm.
to
Well,
like
that's what
vote for
happened with
me.
Lincoln. Yeah. Like Lincoln was everyone's like second choice, And
Yeah,
that's how
actually,
he won
yeah,
the nomination because he was like, okay, well, this guy, you guys want this guy, but like, I'll be your second. And that's how he got it. So
yeah,
that's not
that's a good
like
point.
new, but it's also just like, it's all to, to
So they
put a
don't do
pin
that
on it.
anymore. They don't do that anymore because
What
like
did they do?
it was what one of the things that Bernie railed against the most was that this was undemocratic to have
Hmm.
your state won, but the delegates not bound to what the voters of that state. It's crazy.
I know.
That's crazy. That's such bullshit. No, they
I,
now
I,
it's a different version of it, which is like it's like the first round, if it's
hmm
a contested convention, then the first round, first off, it has to be contested. If it is, then the first round ballot has to go with the way their state voted. Then
hmm
on a second round, some percentage are allowed to vote on their own.
hmm
But back in 2016, that wasn't the case. It's just changed in like 2018.
So
So
I was president of the Manhattan Young Democrats.
yeah,
So the Young Dems are very sweet. It's like they have good intentions, but they always end up fighting with each other, you know? But they have a nominating convention for the president of the Young Dems, and it is fun as shit because everyone's mad at each other, but you get to do the thing where you're like, state of New York, we have 6 votes for farmer circle sandwich and 7 votes for whatever. Like it's very fun, and I like watching that part of the convention where they're like, the great state of Nevada supports Joe Biden or whatever, you know? I
No, it's
love
fun. I
that.
mean, yeah,
It's
it's like
so
very
fun.
old timey. It's very cool and all that. But
Yeah.
also, I did do again. Rail against me all you want about belief systems. The Republican Party does not do this. This has always been a unique feature of the Democratic Party. The Republican Party does have a concept of unbound delegates, but
Hmm.
the way the Democratic Party works now is the way the Republican Party always operated.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, come on. Like,
So there's also like, yeah, like someone who I know was like, the young Dems always fight. Is that normal? And I was like, yeah, it's all Democrats, all they do is fight with each other. That's how we
nuts,
got here. Like, there's
nuts.
no, I don't know.
So, anyways, Mondale wins the argument with the super delegates. He becomes the nominee. And oh yeah, this is also hilarious to me. So yeah, so Mondale wins the nominee. During his nomination speech, again, this goes back to like, dude, like just please stop shooting yourselves in the foot for absolutely no reason. He is quoted as saying, "Let's tell the truth. Mr. Reagan will raise taxes, and so will I. He won't tell you, I just did." And it reminded me of when Dukakis was in a debate and he was asked if he would want the death penalty if somebody raped and killed his wife. And he's like, no. And let me tell you why. The death penalty is, it's like, dude, if you're a campaign manager, like these are human moments. This is
Hmm.
not a policy discussion that you're having. Like have a human moment and stop being so like moralistic and principled and like just, ugh,
Hmm.
God, I just want to shake these people awake.
I
Anyways,
mean, I mean, I know about debate prep from watching The West Wing, right? And it seems like it's stressful, you know? And like, if they throw you a weird ass question like that, you know, you're gonna be like, oh, this is like, it's like Miss America, you
Walter
know? So,
Mondale was giving his acceptance speech. It wasn't that challenging. He wrote it probably a month before.
hmm. Okay, fair, fair.
Okay. No, what it honestly made me think of was like the Democratic Party would rather lose nobly than to win. That's what it makes me think of.
That I think that is exactly right, and that is what a lot of people who are like third party voters this right now are like. That's how they're feeling, and you're like, but all these examples of this, you know, it's really it's frustrating. I feel like also for like you and me are very in. We know what's going on. We spend a lot of our time thinking about this. Most people don't, you know, like during the debate the other day, I'm texting with some people who have strong opinions one way, some that have strong opinions another way. And then one of my friends sent me something about beads, about like making jewelry. And I was like, you don't even know this is happening. That's
That's
wild.
true. That's actually,
It's
you know what?
wild that you don't know this is happening right now. But you're
Me and
like,
you were texting too, and I had that
yeah,
same experience where I texted somebody and like, I'm not watching this. It's like, wow, okay,
they didn't even know what was happening. You know, it wasn't like
yeah,
I know people who chose not to watch it, which I planned to not watch it, but then I decided to because people kept texting me. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll put it on. I appreciate how easy it was to watch online because I feel like I said about the Olympics are like nearly impossible to watch, but like you have to have like a cable subscription and all these things, but I appreciate how accessible it was for
yeah.
free.
No, it's interesting. It's interesting because I've been listening to a lot of like progressive voices on this because that's actually
Hmm.
one of the reasons why I wanted to text you because I was like, am I like hearing things differently? Like, how is somebody that's like super on the progressive side hearing this? And then you were telling
Hmm.
me your perspective on it, and so I started listening to the Pod Save America guys. I was like, these guys have to have a really good perspective on this. They know Biden, and like they were. I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm whatever. It doesn't. Let's not
No, I
get like
liked
this.
their stuff too. I was listening to them after and yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough. four
I mean,
years.
I don't I don't know. Yes. And I'm excited for 4 years from now, no matter what happens, when we have two fucking 37-year-olds who are handsome as shit talking about debating. That's what I
Yeah,
want.
Yeah. So, anyways, okay. Let's go back to the story. This is a long one. It's longer than I thought. So the outcome of the Reagan Mondale matchup is basically what we already know happened. Reagan ends up trouncing him. He actually won. I didn't know this, but this win is the biggest win in the history of presidential politics. Reagan won
Wow.
525 electoral votes to 13 for Mondale. It was a swing of 17 million votes, or 20% of the total electorate on the popular vote side.
Wow.
Literally the biggest margin ever in US history. Um, and another like super cute thing, given our current situation, you should do this. You should go back and watch the Mondale Reagan debate. It will blow you away, Taylor. It was so what do you think about the earned income tax for the children? It's like these guys are talking about the golf swing. Wait, one's can't even doesn't even talk. Like
Yeah.
it's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's cute to think about now. But I went back and I watched one of them, and so back then during this debate, Reagan's age was a problem. Reagan was
Hmm.
73 years old,
Hmm.
and he was being called on a question for being old. And it was during one of these debates when Reagan, who was being told he's too old, he quips back, I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I'm not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience. And I read that Walter
That's
Mondale, he was like,
amazing.
amazing. Everybody was cackling when he said that, including Mondale. And I read that Mondale said that, yeah, I was laughing, but if you look really close, you can see a tear coming out of my eye because I knew at that moment this election was over.
Fuck, that is a really fucking good answer. Wait, so do you want to talk about the Nixon Kennedy debate real fast?
Sure.
So that's the one that you always hear about. Well, like it's like the famous one for being really um having to do with like what a president looks like and like being more presidential in a debate. Because during that debate, Kennedy like is young as shit. He's handsome. He wore makeup. He knew how to be on TV. Nixon was sick and he didn't want to wear makeup. So people who watched the debate thought that Kennedy won, and people who listened to it because it was still like heavily radio thought that Nixon won. You know, and that was like the first time where it was like it matters. Like so, then in school, I learned a lot about you scrutinize every debate and like in like there's a Clinton Bush debate where Clinton Bush just like sits and doesn't move. He's like they're sitting on these stools for some reason. And Bush is like on his stool the whole time, but Clinton is getting up. He's looking at the audience. He's talking to them. There is an audience. He's like moving them around. The Nixon Kennedy one, there was not an audience like this one that happened last week. There was no
Yeah.
audience. And that changed the dynamic as well. It's just interesting. So like it matters like, what you wear. It matters what your
Yeah.
mannerisms
In
are.
the
It all
Bush,
matters.
in the Bush Clinton one, Bush was checking his watch.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but it's also so you actually called this out in the last episode how Obama kind of did bad against Mitt Romney. Like he just seemed kind of flat-footed and wasn't as like
Hmm.
sharp as we know him to be. And so one thing that the Pod Save America guy said was, look, when you're an incumbent president, you're not used to being called like a lying scoundrel, whatever. Like you're used
Hmm.
to people just listening to you and you're the boss and all that. And so there
And
is
also, like,
something,
you're busy, right?
and you're busy, and there's something about like you show up to a debate and it's like it's your first time going back into that world of being talked to like that, and you're just trying to
Yeah.
get used to it again. Um, so, anyways, so long story short is that Gary goes away from this loss, but he decides he's not going to rerun for Senate. Instead, he's going to wait for Reagan's term to expire and run for president again in 1988, which
Hmm.
was totally a reasonable thing to do given how well he did in the 83 primary season. So Gary mounts his 88 campaign in a crowded field. This time it includes Jesse Jackson, Al Gore, Paul Simon, Dick Gephardt, and Michael Dukakis.
The singer,
So
Paul Simon?
no, I looked that up too. It was
That's a
he's
bummer.
I forgot if it was Utah or something. He was a former senator.
That's funny.
So fun facts. This is also the election where David Duke campaigned for president on the Democratic
Ew.
ticket. Um,
Whoa.
and then it was also Joe Biden's first run at president.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he actually ended up dropping out before any primaries happened. The reason was that all these plagiarism things started popping up. Do you remember this?
Mm-mm.
It came up in 2020 that he like plagiarized a bunch of stuff. And
hmm
this it was during this run that that all surfaced. So all the stuff that you heard in 2020 about him plagiarizing speeches, it was from his run in
Did he do
'88.
that?
Yeah, he did.
Oh my God, remember when Melania Trump plagiarized a speech from Michelle Obama?
I remember that. So to Biden's credit, he he credited the person whose speech he was saying, except
Uh-huh.
on like a specific incident which was recorded, and it was actually the Dukakis campaign who spread that far and wide that he did this. So
Hmm.
as sweet as Dukakis is, I guess this was it's so cute. They forced the campaign staff who did this to resign. Can you believe how cute that is?
Yeah, that is ridiculous. And then I was also thinking, oh God, what was I thinking about? Oh, I can't remember. I lost it. About um plagiarizing. Continue. I don't remember.
So in this case, in '88, the Dems actually had a better chance they had in '84. The reason being they had already taken that back the Senate in the midterms, and the Republicans were embroiled in Iran-Contra, which was not a good look for them.
hmm
At the start of the cycle, the overwhelming winner, according to public opinion polls, was Gary Hart. He was polling in the 30 to high 40% range, depending on the poll and when exactly it was being given, which is crazy given how many people were running for this office in the primary.
hmm
So one thing to know about Gary is he didn't have the best personal reputation. He and his wife had separated twice and were living apart at the time, with her raising their kids alone. He also was kind of considered a bit aloof with policy positions that just didn't have that much on the bone. And
hmm
it was under this cloud that he had developed a reputation as also being a womanizer.
Yeah.
So the media was primed and ready for this, with kind of like
Which
the
is so
new,
funny because like I'm a president who isn't.
yeah, like yeah. Actually,
I'm gonna say
Biden's not.
I'm gonna say Abraham Lincoln because he was too busy reading.
Wasn't he gay?
But no, no, no,
Which
no,
one
no.
was gay? There was one gay one.
There's definitely a gay one. It's not Lincoln. I don't know. I can't remember
Really?
which one. There's one who was a bachelor, and had a bestie, James Buchanan.
Got it. Got it.
He was unmarried, a roommate.
A roommate. That's what it was. Uh, so yeah, it was under this cloud that he developed this reputation as kind of like a womanizer,
hmm
and I was thinking about how this is like '88, and like it was just starting to be a thing that they would like start looking into like your personal life. You did a
hmm
whole episode about how Eleanor Roosevelt had like a lover, and like
Yeah.
it just kind of sort of was hush whispers, like notes that nobody really talked about. Like if that was today, that would be like all over everything. It would be like years of content being produced on it. So like this is like the impetus for that. This is like the beginning parts of that.
Yeah. And I think also like I don't know if we talked about it before, but like for a very long time, presidents didn't campaign for themselves.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
you
that
did. You
that was
brought that up.
considered, yeah, that was considered like not cool. So like people just kept like you wouldn't hear from the candidate. Like FDR didn't even go to like some of the conventions, and then he'd like get a call that he was nominated again.
It's pretty cool. It's
Like
kind of cool.
that's wild
It's
to think
hardcore.
of now. When you're like, if we could just not hear from them and hear from other people, that'd be nice.
Yeah, if only. So in 1987, a woman named Donna Rice was the former Miss South Carolina beauty pageant winner, and she was doing as you do when you are that type of person. She was in Aspen with her boyfriend on at his house for New Year's Eve party. Her boyfriend was co-vocalist and lead guitarist for the Eagles, Don Henley, which is
Awesome.
like pretty hard, pretty awesome. So obviously, when that kind of guy drops a party, the movers and shakers in town come. Here comes the former U.S. Senator for Colorado, Gary Hart. So they meet and they end up kind of striking up like a friendship, whatever you want to call it. I have no idea what they actually struck up, and we still don't know what they struck up. But during all this, the media was playing up on his reputation that he's a womanizer. So Gary challenged them to stalk out his life to find out how boring he really is, which is like a horrible move. So, according to an anonymous tip, reporters ended up staking out his DC townhouse, and they observed Don and Gary arriving at the house together, and nobody walking out the front door until the next day. So
hmm
we don't know if Gary would later say that she left out the back door. We don't know what happened. We don't know if they
But
actually stayed
he's
over,
married but
separated.
separated.
Yeah. The New York Times Magazine published a story about this and basically stirred up all this alleged affair stuff, and it led to basically the media just all kind of piling on essentially. So his poll numbers started to tank, and he started losing popular appeal, specifically to Michael Dukakis, who was like second up, the runner-up to him. So literally a week after the story came out, the Washington Post also told the campaign that they have another story about a woman who said she's like in an affair with him.
Hmm.
Like horrible. And at that point, he decided it's going to be too much, and so he dropped out of the race on May 8th. So literally a week after all this broke, he dropped out of the race for president while he was ahead.
Wow.
He would ditch everyone and basically abscond to a small cottage he rented in Ireland
Good for
and
him.
just presumably write and walk the countryside, which sounds absolutely delightful.
No,
Um,
100%. That
and
sounds
then for
way better than being president.
yeah, no kidding. Yeah, just go do
For real.
that.
Yeah.
Uh, Something happened to him. I don't know what got up his ass about this, but in December of 1987, he decided to return back to the campaign and keep running for president. So he would obviously go forward and get destroyed by Michael Dukakis. And Dukakis would then go on to lose in the 13th biggest landslide in presidential history to George H.W. Bush, 426 to 111. Stop being principled. Like this is
I
God.
know.
Here's the I don't even care about the policy anymore. It's like just try to run a real campaign.
I know. I mean, it would
It's
be
so
fun for like
irritating.
people to see and like be a part of and like be around. I don't know. That'd be super exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. I given how long I've been in politics, like at this stage, zero hope for the Democratic Party. I've seen absolutely no signs that there's any interest in trying to win.
I know. Yeah, it's
Crazy.
it's scary. I don't know.
So crazy. Anyways, because people don't remember this, but in 2015, the Republicans were shitting themselves. They were so terrified. Like, this guy's gaining traction. He's literally beating all of our like institutional Republicans. There goes Jeb. There goes Marco. There goes like those are the people who are supposed to get
Hmm.
elevated to the presidency. And there was all this talk that we were going to try and block him at the convention, and they literally let him go forward. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not happy about it, but it's at least democratic.
No, totally. Do you know how that Jeb's name is initialed and they make fun of him in Arrested Development? Because like Job is like
Job,
George
yeah.
something Booth, and that's what Jeb is. Is his initials.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, because they call him Gob.
Yeah, exactly.
That
Which
weird
is really
Gob.
funny and stupid. I know. He was like, you were like, I feel like I mean, he's fine, but I'm feeling he's like that was shitty.
Yeah,
Just
well,
happened.
yes, yeah. So here's the thing. Like what I've learned about him is like since then, he was one of the main people who was running around trying to alert. So basically, in 1998, Bill Clinton put him on a commission to study like terrorism, counterterrorism measures, and stuff like that. Um, he was responsible for that whole project, that whole program, and it was like the it was like September 2nd and then 3rd and then 5th and then 6th and then 8th. He was having all these back-to-back meetings with like Condoleezza Rice and the
Jeb
cabinet for
was?
George. No, Gary.
Oh, okay, Gary.
Yeah, he was having all these back-to-back meetings with the cabinet of George H.W. Bush saying a terrorist attack is about to happen. Like it is literally imminent to happen. It was like he did this up until like
Hmm.
September 8th, I think was like the last meeting he did this, 2001, right before 9/11.
I that also happened in Munich. They were like, there is going to something terrible is going to happen at a big international event in Europe, and people were like, meh, what could it
Yeah.
possibly be? You're like,
Whose job is it? Who's supposed to care?
it's obviously this, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, anyways, I would say this. I would say if you are on the Democratic side of the aisle, ask more of the people that you're giving money to. Ask more of the
Yeah.
people who are in control of the committees that you're giving money to. Ask more of the DNC. Ask more of your state party. Ask more of like your county party. Ask more. It's just like, again, like nothing has changed. Even this conversation we're having today about Joe Biden, it is all based on party elder logic of like we
Hmm.
can't supersede. Like,
This person's turn. It's this. They've been doing this for so long.
dude, and then you start playing out the logic of like what else could be done. So what if
Hmm.
you contested the convention? Like, what's wrong?
Hmm.
Okay, so if you put Gavin Newsom up there, the starkest contrast, like Donald Trump, then the problem is that you're putting another straight white guy up, right? Like you
Yeah.
gotta like the party politics won't let you win. Like it is not
Hmm.
designed. God, it's so stupid. Um, and so because of that, we're gonna keep having this. Like that's I don't see a road out of this essentially.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I hope there's something, but like, I also don't know. And that's why I feel so like everything local and all the committees in the states, like, that's important. Like, I'm so fucking grateful that I live in the great state of California.
Dude, but that's the thing. That's the thing, Taylor. Like what I literally just mentioned about the 84 and 88 elections is that when the top of the ticket doesn't inspire turnout,
Hmm.
then the bottom of
Right.
the ticket loses.
Yeah.
So I'm not talking about Trump just winning in November. It is the Senate, it's the House, it is your school
Right.
board. While your school board technically should be nonpartisan, we all know it's not. Like
It's
it's
not.
governors, like it is all of it
All of
because
that's really important. No, yeah, that's what I'm saying too.
but then you have to eat it because
Hmm.
nobody will just say the hard thing at the highest level and do what it takes to actually win.
Hmm.
Anyways, I'm rambling
No, I
on.
mean, yeah, no, I know. I feel like the third party people, I'm always like, okay, then give me a third party fucking governor or a senator, like whatever. Like, what is happening?
Dude, but that's the thing, see, here's the thing, like, I'm at the point in my like understanding of this stuff where I'm like, dude, I get it. I get it. I get why you want to vote third party. I like, yes, there's like a greater good logic to it, but there's also how many times do you have to get punished before you want to punish back? And part of punishing back is,
But to what end? Like, isn't this a bad place? Are we not there yet?
dude, this is going to
Because
continue. That's what I'm
I
saying.
feel like
I'm
we're
saying
there. I
in
mean,
the
it's still
in
going to get
the
worse. But I don't feel like I'm in a good place.
No, no, and that's what I'm saying. I'm saying in like the 15 plus years that you and I have been involved in this way in politics, it's never not been like this on the Democratic side. It's
Yeah,
always been like this.
yeah,
That's the reason why our last company start or CEO started his company was
yeah.
because there was kingmakers and you had to go with what the kingmaker said. And he was right.
Hmm.
And that's where we are right now. And
Hmm.
anyways, it's super, yeah, it's super bad. But and there's no solution. There's absolutely no solution.
No,
So,
I think that the solution is aliens come and we have to decide, do we kill them or do we let them tell us what to do? Either way, I think we'd be better off. I'm going to say, what do they want us to do? Do they want us to like use our natural resources better and not have nuclear war? I say yes to those things.
yeah, maybe they'll make Trump and Biden hug each other and oh God.
Do they want to just like take all of our resources? I'm also like, yeah, we don't deserve them. But also,
Sticks and stones.
if they got here, they already figured out how to harness their sun, so like they don't
It's
really need
true.
our like oil, but maybe they want to like hang out. Honestly, they're not coming because we're too stupid. I'm gonna switch back to that because like, yeah,
We
and
we are
that's
quintessential don't deserve nice things.
we don't deserve nice things. We don't, and that's what we learn through history, what we learn through politics, what we learn through all these things is like we're never gonna all we're not gonna figure it out. Certainly not ever. Maybe no, in no one's lifetime. We can't do it. We don't want world peace or country peace or anything.
No,
We
there's
want
something
people want to be like, "Oh, I'm gonna be a billionaire." So blah blah blah. You're like, "You're not." So why
there's
would you not want to
something
give kids food?
there's something about like the smugness of we know better that's just like,
Yeah.
man, God.
And meanwhile, everybody has to try to like live, and survive. And like that's what always happens. It's like during the fucking Roman Empire, people are back and forth, and there's like most of the people are just like, I'd love to have some bread today. That'd be great.
Yeah.
But you
I
don't
would
get it.
love I would love for like I said, when I would love for our listeners to like write us in after hearing this because I mean, I don't know if any of this is like inside baseball. Like it probably isn't that inside baseball. It might just be stuff that
No.
people have forgotten about or haven't read in a while or whatever.
Hmm.
But I would love to just catch different perspectives on this. Like whatever your belief system is, I don't care. Like I don't like th- nobody's wrong and nobody's right. Like
Yeah, and I
we
feel like
all
it has to
just
be
have different
something,
shades.
and we all want similar things. I don't think that there's anyone who like doesn't want good things. I don't know. You don't want people to like
Yeah, it's
starve to
just
death.
different. It's just varying interpretations of how to do certain things. But I'd be really
Yeah.
curious for anybody who cares about this stuff to write into us and let us know what you think. Because, like I said, when this debate was happening, I was texting all my friends left, right, and center because I was like, I want to know what you think is happening. Like, what's your
Hmm.
perspective on this? And that's why I've been listening to all these podcasts. I'm trying to get a sense like what is the overall arching narrative on this, and where does it fit with my worldview of what I understand about the Democratic Party? And
And was it,
it's
and this is
it's
the
all
answer?
this well literally everybody said that that was an unmitigated disaster, and then the
Hmm.
next thing was how do they replace him, and then that led me to the DNC. As much as they're saying we're freaking out privately and we're doing this privately and this that, what they should be doing is going out publicly and saying something,
Yeah.
putting it out there the way the New York Times editorial board did, the way that CNN did, and saying something publicly so that there's a shot in hell for somebody to be able to stand up and do something. And somebody's got to figure out this FEC stuff because I don't even know what happens there. Like if you donated to the ticket, where's that money go if he isn't the top of the ticket? I don't
Right.
know, but somebody high up instead of just being a sycophant about this stuff, guaranteed unequivocally it's a foregone conclusion. Trump wins the presidency. Foregone conclusion. Like there's absolutely zero doubt. They
I
just
don't think that's true
generated
yet,
they
but
just generated 10 years worth of ad content during that one debate.
hmm.
Like so anyways, I would love for folks to write in doomtofallpod@gmail.com and let us know what you think and what your perspective on this stuff is. And if there's things around this that you think maybe like I or Taylor can provide context on,
Hmm.
happy to do it. Obviously, it's a topic that we both care deeply about.
I know.
So
It's a wild time to be alive, but every time is a wild time to be alive.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
So what
what
are you gonna
that's
do?
researching these old presidential races. Like, dude, like, yeah, you remember when that was the biggest thing in the world? Remember when we thought when George W. Bush was being elected, like this is the end of the world? Like,
I mean, could you imagine like the Nixon stuff, the Watergate happening, and like the president resigning and like all those things, and like there's a whole part of the Nixon story where he goes on TV and tells everybody his financials, like exactly. And there's a part where he talks about how his wife Pat has one fur coat. Like,
hey, do you
what?
know why?
That happened?
Do you know what happened that made Nixon resign?
Tell me.
The
I feel like
Republican
yes.
Party went to him and said, "You have to resign," because the party, the man is an extension of the party. The party is not an
Yeah.
extension of the man. Anyways, that's it. I gotta go
No,
have dinner.
I know exactly what you're saying. Um, no, it's crazy. And I hope that anyone who is listening to this who didn't watch the last debate watches the next one. Because whatever we're doing now, whatever, it's always important for you to watch them. Like this is what people are going to talk about forever. Watch it anyway. Who knows what's going to happen? You just have to keep, you know, pushing
Go
forward
watch
and hopefully no one
go watch
dies.
Mondale and Reagan. You will be aghast at the depth of knowledge. It's just like they're like talking about detailed statistics and percentages, like in the
Yeah.
most minutia way possible. Like, what is this? Like,
I
like
mean, do you have to lowest common denominator your debate skills? to like who you're talking to,
Maybe
but
that.
also like I don't know. Um, anyway, go. You have to go eat dinner. I know. I do have one more note from a listener. I just talked to Nadine, our friend Nadine. She was traveling in the UK and she got her purse stolen, so she wanted to just share a public announcement that like if you are traveling, keep your stuff very, very close, especially your passport. Put it inside
Oh
your
yeah.
shirt, crossbody bag. If your bag breaks, don't put your crossbody bag in your backpack. Just be very careful out there because that is a constant of the world is be careful if you're traveling. Just in general. So I'm so sorry, Nadine, but thank you for
Sorry,
bringing that up. And
Nadine.
she also had some really fun stories that she heard on a ghost tour when she was over there. And I'm like, that sounds really nice to tell a ghost story. So maybe I'll do that after this.
Nice. I like that.
So
Yeah, yeah, why
I feel
not?
heavy. So I'm like, I'm just being
Yeah.
silly,
Ghosts are
you know?
fun. Ghosts are fun.
So fun. Who cares? I did watch, my last thing to tell you. Under Paris was not terrible. You made it sound like it was like the worst movie you've ever seen. I thought it was fun. I don't feel like it was the best movie I've ever seen, but I've definitely seen worse horror movies. Like there's
Okay,
sci-fi
it's
movies that are
fun.
really bad. I don't think it wasn't bad. Like I recommend it. I wouldn't not watch it. I'd watch it
It's
again.
definitely
It was fun. It was
fun.
like Deep Blue Sea. You know, I loved the ending. The ending was super fun. We watched on one Christmas, we watched a movie called Santa Jaws, which is literally about a
Yeah,
shark that has a
I
Santa hat on
did.
its fin.
I did
Did you watch
too.
it?
Yeah, where the kid draws a Santa hat and then he like
That
drops it in
was
the
like the
water.
dumbest movie I've ever fucking seen. And in that one, you were like, just don't go by the water. Like it's like really easy not to get eaten by a shark. But in Under Paris, it was like super fun to see how people accidentally get eaten by a shark. I liked it.
Yeah, there you go. Full recommend. I mean, technically, I recommended it to Taylor, so it was
You said
recommended.
drink 3 bottles of wine and then watch it. I don't recommend that. I think you should just watch it.
Just watch it sober.
Okay,
Um,
cool. Thank you. Doomed to Fail Pod on all the socials. Doomedtofailpod.com. Send us an email. Doomedtofailpod at
please.
gmail.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Taylor.
Thanks, Faris.